Hey everyone, I'm at King's College Circle at the University of Toronto, and arguably this is the location of one of the best views of the CN Tower from downtown. So what am I doing here in Toronto while Chris is still in South Florida on the boat? Stay tuned and we'll answer that, including why we spent so long in the Bahamas and our upcoming plans for cruising on Thataway. For Chris and Sandra, a few years ago we bought a boat we named Thataway. One boat lesson later, we scooted down Lake Erie, through the Welland Canal, and on to Lake Ontario. After a bunch of boat projects, we started up the Trent Severn Waterway, becoming real boaters by running aground on our very first day. These days, we're cruising America's Great Loop, a 6,000-mile journey of the coastal and inland waters of North America and the Bahamas. We're not sure where we'll go next or when we'll get there, but thanks for following along while we figure it out. I'm back in Ontario, and I'm on the grounds of University College at University of Toronto. This is the college within the university that Chris was first attached to when he started engineering school here in, I believe, 87. And this is also the university that our daughter Helen graduated from, both in engineering. So it's a nice quiet day in Toronto. It is sunny, very low humidity, stark contrast to the weather that Chris is experiencing in South Florida. But I am glad to be here. It is just beautiful, and I'm really enjoying this Canadian summer. So since I've been here, I have been doing a lot of stuff. I've had a couple good visits with our son Stephen and his wonderful partner Vidushi. I have been to my coveted and much beloved Allen Gardens. Even though they're under construction and there's not really as much to see, I did wander through it and saw the turtles, which always gives me a real mood boost, so it was kind of nice. I have been to see my doctor, I've been to see specialists, I've been to have bone scans and lab work, and now I'm waiting for an MRI. So the other thing I've been doing since I've been in Toronto is looking after this sweet baby. This is Isla. Here, Isla. Sit, sit, sit. Good girl. So I joined a service called Trusted House Sitters. Can you sit some more? And look up here, Isla. Look up here. There you go. Sit, sit, sit. She's very treat-driven. It's sort of like exchanging your dog sitting services or your pet sitting services for accommodation. So that's what I've been doing since the middle of the month. And in a couple of days, I am done looking after this sweet girl. Hey? She's been no trouble at all. She's a rescue from Mexico. And let's see if we can get a better... Want to sit? Sit, 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 sit. And she's just very sweet. And after the first couple days, she has been coming in and sleeping with me, which is new because all of my dogs have never slept with me before. So what has Chris been doing while I've been here in Toronto, having coffee at cafes and seeing turtles in conservatories and running around to doctors? So let's check in with him.
I'm hunkered down in Florida, looking out for hurricanes and making a mess of the boat. Hopefully all this staining, cutting, drilling, shellacking, sanding is going to turn Thataway into a really comfortable place to live next year or next season.
So why am I here? It's two reasons, the medical and also immigration. So the US government actually decided I'd been in the States too long. So when we returned from Toronto from the boat show, they decided that I only had 18 days left in the States, and we were docked at Fort Myers Beach. They did allow me a couple of extra weeks. They gave me an extended visa. We managed to get the boat around, as you may know, to Miami, and we went over to the Bahamas. However, they asked me to stay away. This is a bit uncommon for Canadian loopers. Usually people don't have problems if they're here for more than 180 days. But there is a little bit of extenuating circumstances. Chris is a dual citizen, so when we travel together, I get the special treatment. I always get 4 or 5 extra questions, and my passport gets run very carefully. So in this particular instance, I got on the radar, and they decided to lay down the law, which is their prerogative. So that meant that I had to get over to the Bahamas by a specific date, and we did manage to do that. I did talk to an immigration lawyer briefly, Thanks to the wonderful network of lawyers that my cousin James has, I was able to talk to somebody very briefly without cost who reassured me that the American government really isn't that concerned about Canadians staying too long. They have their sights set on illegal immigration from the south. So he suggested stay away for 2, even better 3 months, come back on the boat because there is a little bit less scrutiny coming back on a pleasure boat, and he figured it would be fine. In fact, his comment was, Sandra, what are they going to do? Just make you go back to the Bahamas? Worst case, they'll give you a week to get back to Canada by air. So we returned from the Bahamas on May 26th, and not an issue. Didn't even have an interview. So we managed to get back into Florida. It was late in the year at that point. We figured at May 26th, and we had made this decision while we were in the Bahamas, that we didn't want to rush up the East Coast at that point and miss out on a whole bunch of stuff. And we weren't really sure that we were finished with Florida. We didn't really see enough of the Keys, not as much as we wanted to. So that, and coupled with the fact that while we were in the Bahamas, I asked my family doctor to refer me finally to a specialist in Canada. And that took a little bit of time to set up. So I've had that appointment now. It was in the mid-July. I've had that appointment, and she spent about 3 minutes and diagnosed plantar plate tear, which is what Dr. Google and I diagnosed before I walked into the emergency room in Mobile, Alabama. And I was pretty much dismissed when I said, could this be it? And am I ticked off about that? Not really. It is what it is. I'm happy to be back here. To get it all sorted out. The question now is she wants to confirm it, so we're waiting for an MRI. Initially, it was going to be 3 months wait because this is not an urgent case at all. I'm able to walk. There's no bone sticking out. So fortunately, when I called to ask about the appointment, they'd just had a cancellation, so that's coming up in a few weeks, not 3 months. So I'm really happy about that, and I'll have more answers in a bit. So where does all of this leave us? Well, I am staying out of the US for a good long period of time to address any future immigration issues. So the earliest that I will go back to Florida is probably November or December, probably early December. I really don't want to go back before the election for obvious reasons. Because I am a Canadian citizen, I don't want to be a foreign national in the US until all of that's sorted out. Chris, being a dual citizen, has a few more rights as a citizen down there, so if things go kind of sideways, then he's got a few more protections than I would. Chris is also returning to Canada at the end of August. He's got a cycling trip with his brother Andrew. Everyone might remember my brother-in-law Andrew, who did the Bahamas crossing with Chris. An update on future episodes on our YouTube channel. Unfortunately, during construction on the boat, the several hard drives were damaged when a bunch of wood fell around and knocked things around. And despite all my efforts to get it recovered, both with a lot of helpful tips from people on Facebook, but also with a company up here in Ontario that took a look at it and just said it was damaged too much. We lost 3 months of raw footage from the time that Helen came to visit us, which was kind of disappointing in the Bahamas, up to our return back to Indiantown into Florida. And unfortunately, the crossing back into Florida was on that hard drive, and for me, it was disappointing to lose that because if anyone knows, I have had some anxiety around open water, and I made that crossing successfully with very little anxiety, and I was really proud of that, and I was hoping to put together an episode. It took a lot of footage of that, but it's gone now. Next episodes will begin with a lot of the construction and the renovations that Chris and I started and that Chris is doing on his own now while I'm up here. Another note, you might have noticed our really catchy new intro. We worked with a young animator, Abigail Allardyce, and over the last 6 months we've been going back and forth, and she's beautifully talented. She's put this together. We're really pleased with it. If you have any animation needs, I would love to connect you to her. She's a young freelancer just getting started. Last bit of news, not sure it's news, an update on where we're at with our loop. I don't know what we're doing with the loop. We're kind of stalled out in South Florida for the time being. Obviously, we're not going to be heading north at least until spring of next year. We think we have a couple options. We might hang around South Florida for the winter, go down to the Keys with the boat. This past winter we went to Bahia Honda and we took day trips. I think we might like to take the boat down to the Florida Keys, down to Key West. Not sure about that. See what the weather's like this coming winter. We have the option as well of, and we've been considering this, doing another Bahamas trip. We also may take the boat slowly north next winter and spend next summer exploring the Chesapeake Bay, which I've told is quite beautiful in the same way that to that area that Georgian Bay is to Ontario. I just want to thank anybody who reached out to us when we were in the Bahamas. It was getting to be a really tough time for me. It was kind of a weird situation that we were in this beautiful place and I just was not feeling well, not being able to exercise, having pain in my foot. This was an injury that happened sometime on the rivers last year and I'm really not sure what happened or how it happened or anything, but it very slowly made me less mobile and very painful to walk. For a while I wasn't feeling very well on a number of counts. So lots of work to do on that, and hopefully a nice summer here in Ontario will help. Feel for Chris, who's down in Florida for the next couple of weeks in that awful, awful heat. It's like the devil's kitchen down there. But I think he's also looking forward to finishing up, getting the boat pulled out for the rest of hurricane season, and then heading back. And just a note about having kept the boat in Indiantown, we chose that because it's a bit of a hurricane hole. When we knew that we weren't going to bring the boat back to Canada, we wanted to find somewhere where we could work on it and where it was relatively safe. So Indiantown was recommended to us. It's on the St. Lucie Canal. So it's been a really ideal place for us to be. We've got air conditioning on the boat, so it's comfortable. There's bugs all around me here. It's comfortable for Chris to work on at the moment. We also traded in our Canadian boat insurance for American boat insurance with State Farm, so it would cover us for hurricane season. It was totally reasonable, and we didn't have any issues with it. I know a lot of people do when they're considering staying below 40 north during hurricane season. All right, so thanks for sticking with us. Our YouTube episodes will be a little bit slower coming out for the time being, but we hope you stay tuned regardless. See you next time.